Hello, welcome to Influencers, where we bring on individuals who can influence our lives, our cities, our communities. Today, I am so honored to have a big time name, Ira Kurzban, whose book is now going to come out with its 17th edition. In my opinion, and opinion of many, there is no one smarter when it comes to immigration than Ira Kurzban. Ira, welcome to Influencers.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Peter. Thank you for inviting me, and happy to be here.
Yeah, I know, and I appreciate it very much. As you can imagine, as president of the Latin Chamber of Commerce out here in Nevada, where Latinos, Hispanics, and Asian Americans as well. I mean, immigrants have always driven Las Vegas, have always made it a first-class destination. And so, as you can imagine, a lot of people are waiting to hear more about what's going on in the immigration world. So, Ira, I'd ask you right out the door. I mean, why immigration? Why your passion for immigration, and what is going on in immigration right now?
Well, the simple answer, Peter, is that the administration announced their intentions virtually the first day they came into office in 2017, which was in effect to radically alter the immigration system in the United States. And they have done so. They have done so quite efficiently. I think of anything that Trump has done in the last 4 years, it is their success in radically changing and really ending immigration as we've known it in America. And as we've known it, for over 200 years of our history. And it began literally on the first days when Trump issued his Muslim ban, which has an effect on about 150 million people from various 50 million Muslims from various Islamic countries, with a few other people thrown in. But basically, it shuts down immigration from the majority of Muslim countries as we knew it before, countries like Iran and others. And so the idea was how the administration could begin the process of change. And they started with that. They were unsuccessful, as you know, at the beginning because there was a huge outcry. They then modified those orders to make it a, quote, national security order. But in fact, it was really the same ban that we had from the very beginning.
And a lot of this stuff is always done in the name of security, isn't it?
Right. National security or foreign policy and so forth. But there was no evidence in this particular case, particularly in all the other countries that Trump decided to issue the ban. It was based on his statements when he was running for president, that he was going to stop Muslims from coming in the country. And that's what he did. To the great detriment of Arab Americans here who wanted to bring their family members in, to businesses here, to people who were dependent on people coming from their families or for employment. So that ban, which is typical, and the reason why I'm spending a bit of time talking about it is it's similar to what we're going through today, was meant to be a short-term 90-day ban. And as you can see, it's now 4 years later, and that ban is still in effect. But the way that the Trump administration sold it was, this is a temporary measure, because the statute under which the president issued this ban is one that's supposed to be used for emergency situations. Where we're confronted with, say, 100,000 people leaving their country all at one time by boat, or some people who are coming who we believe are national security threats, true national security threats. The president was given this power under Section 212F of the Immigration Act. The House of Representatives just passed something called the No Ban Act, and they did that because Trump and this administration has clearly abused what 212F was meant to be. And why do I say that? Subsequent to coronavirus, the president has used the same section of the law to now virtually shut down all immigration from out of the United States. I mean, that may seem like a shocking, overbroad, imprecise statement, but if you look at what the president actually did, it's pretty remarkable. In May of this year, April 22nd of this year, he issued the first ban. And that ban was on all legal immigration into the United States. So when we talk about illegals coming across the border and, a threat to the United States, this has nothing to do with that. And we'll get back to that in a minute. But what this has to do with is a ban on lawful, legal immigration into the United States. And what does that mean? Our immigration system is divided into family-based immigration generally and employment-based. There are some other categories like refugees and asylees, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But basically, our system is family-based or employment-based. The family-based system says if you are a citizen of the United States, you can bring your spouse and child or your parent. It's called an immediate relative.
Right.
If you are a lawful permanent resident, you can bring your child who's under 21, your child who's over 21, what we call sons and daughters if they're not married, or your spouse. You can bring in category 3 if you are an American citizen who wants to bring their married sons and daughters, you can bring them into the United States as well. In category 1, if you want to bring your unmarried son or daughter who's 21 or over, we have a quota system that allows you to bring those people in, bring the residents in, as I've said, bring your married children in. And finally, F4 is the category where we bring the brothers and sisters of U.S. citizens. Now, many of these categories are backlogged for a number of years anyway, but not immediate relatives. In other words, if tomorrow I want to bring in my parent who's an American citizen, absent this ban, I could have done that. When Trump issued this ban on April 22nd, he banned everything. In other words, today you cannot bring in your brother or sister. If you're a lawful permanent resident, you cannot bring into the United States your spouse. You cannot bring in your child. You cannot bring in your adult son or daughter. If you are a citizen and your children are married, you cannot bring those children in.
This is beyond the Muslim ban. This is Latinos, Hispanics, Asians.
This is everyone. This is the world. This is the world. And that's on the family side. And then we talk about the business side. In the business side, we have categories that say if a person is of outstanding ability, somebody we really may need in the United States who's a great scientist or a great doctor or a person of renown engineer or somebody of that nature. If we want to reconstruct America, as they're talking about, redevelop the country, we're going to need brilliant people, but we're also going to need people who may not be as famous. But this category is a category for really outstanding, internationally known people. It's also a category for famous people in the education field, people who are professors, people who work for like Alphabet in their laboratories or what used to be Bell Labs, people who can come in and make contributions to America. And then the third part of the first category are executives, people who are transferees of multinational corporations. We live in a world where even our own businesses in the United States transfer people to other countries, and then we want to transfer them back to the United States, or foreign nationals. We have in the United States many, many CEOs who are from other countries who were transferred into the United States under this category. They're all banned now. None of those people can come in.
So when I hear things like, we only want to bring in and allow the brightest and the best, that's not even allowed right now then.
Correct. That's absolutely true. And I will get to what Trump means by the brightest and the best in a moment. But let me, if I may, let me just finish these other categories that we're talking about. So the second preference are people who have master's degrees or higher who would make significant contributions, architects, engineers, people who would work in various medical fields and may not be related to COVID-19, but are important, making important contributions as scientists and engineers, teachers, people who we regard as making significant contributions to our society, agrarian engineers, that kind of thing. Those people are all banned now. Employment-based third preference, which are people with college degrees or others who need to work in the United States. It may be people who are mechanics. It may be people in the technology field. For example, we are losing tens of thousands, if not more, jobs a year that are just going overseas because we don't have an immigration system that makes any sense that will allow these people to come to the U.S. So the big companies simply export the jobs. Trump keeps talking about bringing jobs back to America, but he's not bringing them back because what's happening is by restricting immigration so much, and this is a total ban as well, again, by restricting them, if you can't bring into the United States people who are computer scientists, because we don't have enough, even with our education system, even with producing the numbers that we produce, we don't have enough nurses in the United States. I live in a state, and maybe in some respects as you do, where there are a lot of older people. In Florida, we don't have enough nurses to do work. We can't produce enough nurses fast enough. So what this law does is it bans all of them, okay? And then the only category that it leaves open, ironically enough, is the investor category, what we call EB-5.
Right.
And EB-5, as you know, has somewhat of a history with the Jared Kushner's family, but is a valid visa that helps to create jobs for Americans and has done that. But I just found it ironic that a total ban on everything else, except for EB-5 and except for the immediate relative of an American, that is a spouse or child. Under this law, ironically enough, the Trump family would not have been able to come to the United States, right? I mean, his wife would not have been able to bring her parents into the United States, even though she's a U.S. citizen. Melania's family could not come in. So it's a little bit ironic that they came in this past year and then he imposed the ban, which would have prevented them from coming into the country. So,
and Ira, just so you know, Las Vegas has had quite a few projects completed and done because of EB-5.
Yeah, no, and EB-5 is an important visa, and I'm glad that he left that open. That was the only thing that he left open. But for the people to do the work, for the engineers that we may need, for the nurses we may need, for the computer specialists we may need, that's all banned now. None of those people, if they're outside of the United States, they cannot come into the country. So this ban went into effect on April 22nd. Again, it was supposed to be a 60-day ban. On June 22nd, the president invited the agencies to give him more suggestions about banning non-immigrants from coming in. H-1B visas from coming in, H-2B visas from coming in, L visas from coming in. So these bans are bans on people who would be coming into the United States to work. So what he did is he said, now I'm keeping it in effect until December 31st, the original ban on permanent residency, and now he's added to that ban. He's now said that trainees, J visas, which a lot of people in Las Vegas, a lot of the hotels rely on to bring young people from other countries where they're trained and where they go. It's an important project for the United States because what it does is it gives people exposure to our system, to a democratic system, a capitalist system, and says to them, look, this is what we're about. You can go home now and tell the rest of the world who we are and what we do. That has now been shut down. The J program is completely, and so summer work travel, where you have a lot of the kids who worked in the hotels just for a couple of months to get experience, trainees, it's all gone now. They banned all of those from abroad.
Amazing.
The second category is they banned transferees of multinational corporations. So our largest corporations in the United States can now not transfer people who are highly skilled, who may be great managers, who could help our country. Those people can no longer be transferred into the United States because they're now part of that ban. And then we get to the H-1Bs, the people who are working in the tech industry, who are the lifeblood of the tech industry. Many of those people from India, some from China, but they have been a supplement to our own people in the tech field who go work for Amazon and all the major, tech companies in the United States. Total ban now. Those people can no longer come into the United States with very narrow exceptions related to COVID-19 under some discretionary exceptions, but they're kind of meaningless. So now what we have, Peter, is a total ban on lawful immigration for permanent residency, except for the narrow categories I mentioned, a total ban on H visas, L visas, J visas coming into the United States. There's still a few visas left, but very few. And then to make it even worse, in the June 22nd ban, that's now effective until December, but I believe, quite honestly, if the president is reelected, that ban will remain in effect for the next 3 or 4 years of his presidency. And why do I believe that? At the very beginning, Trump made his plans, as he always does, really. He's very upfront in the sense that he tells the American people what he wants to do. And what they told them at the very beginning is, we just want a point system. Well, what's a point system? A point system rewards people based on education, based on their language skills, based on how much money they have, and so forth. But that point system can be totally manipulated one way or another. And what Trump really wants is the reinstitution of what we used to call the national origins quota system in the 1920s, where basically we only allowed people in from Northern Europe who were white, highly educated, and highly skilled. You could come into the United States and no one else. And that's what I believe they are trying to do. Now, they've done this externally, but they've also done incredible things internally in the United States to make it impossible for hardworking people who come from Latin America, from Asia, and from elsewhere to come to the United States, and once they're here, to actually get their residency.
And Ira, I think that's a good spot right there to pause for a second. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with influencers, with the foremost immigration. As you can see, the books behind them are his, and he is the foremost expert. We will be right back. Thank you. The Latin Chamber of Commerce recognizes the impact that economic empowerment has on the social and political fabric of our community, and this includes the most vulnerable members of society, our children. Cox is providing youth with a greater chance for success in today's digital world through its low-cost Connect to Compete program. Low-income families with school-age children may qualify for low-cost, high-speed internet at home. To learn more, please visit cox.com/connect to compete. Hi, welcome back to Influencers with my good friend, Ira Kurzban, foremost expert on immigration. We're going to touch on something I know is very, very, very important to all of us, and certainly to a huge community that we have out here that my good friend Astrid, she's so passionate about, and I know that she's watching, and that is the Dreamers, the situation with Dreamers, young people that have committed no crimes, in my opinion, simply come to this great country, really had no choice of their own. One parent or both parents brought them here. And, it's to me, it's just, well, I'm going to say it. It's absolutely criminal for a young person to have any fear, that's committed no crime, that has educated themselves, speaks English. In fact, some of them that I met, I've scolded them for not knowing Spanish enough, because you should absolutely be bilingual if you can be. And yet they got to worry constantly about their status, about being deported. It's absolutely criminal. Ira, where are we with Dreamers, and where do you think this thing's going?
Well, I don't think we're anywhere, unfortunately. As you know, President Obama instituted the Dreamer program, DACA. It's called Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. The point of it was to... But
I wish he would have done more too, Ira, in fairness.
Yeah, I think there's no question. And I think, quite frankly, if there's a Democratic administration, I think the first order of business in immigration will be to make the DACA children lawful permanent residents of the United States. But where we are right now is, quite frankly, nowhere. That is, this administration attempted to remove DACA. It was fought, as you know, through the court system in many different locations. It eventually went to the United States Supreme Court in this term, by a 5-4 decision written by the Chief Justice. He reversed the removal order of the Department of Homeland Security and said that they hadn't engaged in the proper method of taking DACA away, that is, removing it and ending the program. So this and then a judge in one of the districts entered an order saying that not only should these children be allowed, the DACA young people be allowed to continue to get their residency under DACA, at least, to continue to get DACA, but that it should be expanded to also include those who weren't allowed to apply before. This administration has shut that down. They've said they will not take new applications. And they basically signaled, I think, if there's a second term, that they will take DACA away permanently and try and do it the right way to meet Chief Justice Roberts' requirements of how to remove DACA permanently. So depending on what happens, obviously, in the election, right now, because of the court decision, every person who has DACA should make sure to apply and reapply for DACA, get their work authorizations, and move forward on it. And with the hope, and we believe, come January, we'll have a new law if there's a new administration.
That will be music to my good friend Astrid's ears, and so many out there that are, again, constantly in this cloud of worry.
But, Peter, this is a war really on everyone on immigration. I mean, DACA is one part of it. They've instituted something called public charge, and the way that they have written it, and then they instituted a program, what they call discretionary denials. These programs in combination are really designed to prevent anyone who isn't wealthy from becoming a resident of the United States. They're going to use these programs. They're now gearing up to do that. They're going to use these programs to really prevent people from getting their residency. Internally, they virtually have shut down the system. There are 690,000 people waiting for work authorizations. They haven't even gotten employment authorizations that they should be getting. They've taken away temporary protected status. You know, many of the people who work in hotels, for example, either they have DACA or they have temporary protected status, or they have filed applications for residency and they get employment authorization. Trump issued on June 22nd, when he issued the ban externally, he said, let's talk about how we can take away work authorizations from everyone unless they are legally in the United States. And so the next step, and I'm sure what they will do if they're reelected, is basically take away employment authorization. For many of those people, they will take away temporary protected status. They will take away DACA. They will institute public charge provisions. So this is what we call the invisible wall, the internal wall that's designed to prevent people who are here from becoming residents. And then the third and last part of this is to, give you a complete picture, has to do with refugees and asylees. We in the United States have been a beacon of freedom to people around the world for many, many years, certainly since after the Second World War. And we have always had a generous refugee policy. And in 1980, we made that part of our law. What is happening now on the southern border, I honestly believe, is a crime against humanity. What we have done at the southern border is basically just shut it down. For people who are seeking asylum, we're telling them we're not even going to hear your claim. We're throwing you back into Mexico. We're sending you back to Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, and we're banning you from even a consideration of your claims. And they did that under what I regard as a very suspect, I would even say fraudulent order under the CDC, because what the CDC has said is we're not going to allow anybody in, not because they have COVID-19, but because if we allow them in, we will have to incarcerate them, which isn't true. They don't have to incarcerate them. And if they're incarcerated, ICE and CBP, Customs and Border Protection, have told us if they're incarcerated, we can't guarantee that they won't get COVID-19, which, by the way, is directly opposite what they're telling the courts, because they're telling the courts, oh, we can handle the situation, we can detain everyone. But the CDC order at the border says, stop everybody at the border, don't let them in, throw them back into Mexico, throw them back into Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. And that's exactly what we're doing every single day at the southern border of the United States right now. And on top of that, for those people who want to come legally as refugees, we are now at the lowest point of granting refugee status than we have since the Second World War. Trump reduced the numbers from 100,000 to 70,000 to 50,000 to 30,000. We're now down to 18,000 people with their goal of making it zero. And at the same time, he's done a number of other things, like told states, you don't have to take refugees if you don't want to. Right. All of these issues are being litigated and fought, but a second Trump term, there's only so much you can litigate and so long you can litigate these things. A second Trump term is already indicated by regulations that they just passed that said, if you're here and you're seeking asylum, we're not even going to let you be employment authorized for 365 days, one whole year. And even after that, here's 10 other exceptions as to why we will not give you employment authorization. So what they're trying to do is strangle people who are seeking freedom in this country.
And here's what makes me a little suspect, with all due respect to both political parties. and the media, quite frankly, there are atrocities going on, and they're not being covered. And in my opinion, they're not being covered on one side because they don't want people to see that, and then the other side doesn't want anybody to see it during an election either, because there's a large group of people in the voting bloc that still thinks that we should build a big wall and all that nonsense. So I'm suspect on both parties, and I just can't believe that in 2020 we're still dealing with this, that we haven't passed any kind of immigration reform. We haven't done the right things. In fact, we've done horrible things. And, I'd like to believe that there's a better day coming, and I certainly hope so, for all of those families that you talk about. But for me, it's very personal. I want to see good, hardworking Latinos and Latinas that I know come to this country. They're entrepreneurs. They come, they work hard, and they have absolutely made Nevada a great state.
And we always say, if you look at Florida, I went to Florida in the 1970s, and Miami was a dead city in the 1970s. People don't realize that. And it was because we had a generous policy for the Cuban community that city became the gateway to Latin America and became a vibrant, incredible city. But it's because we gave benefits to people. We didn't treat them as enemies. We allowed Cubans to come in. We gave them work authorizations. We told them they were going to become residents, and they worked hard. And this is to me, Miami is the classic example of how immigrants, given the chance and given the ability and given, not somebody ICE raiding your home every day and being afraid, how they can transform really transform the Miami to become the gateway to Latin America. And that's what happened. So I agree with you. I agree with you also that both parties are not covering this. I think what's going on at the southern border is a national disgrace. I really believe that in my heart, that we can't have a country that says to people who are seeking freedom. There was reported last week, a 17-year-old woman with a little child who was raped, who was sent back, just thrown back into her country, who came to the border seeking asylum.
Ira, I would, I feel your passion, and I just admire you so much for that passion. And I think that we're going to end the show now, but I tell you, I didn't expect to hear what you said about Miami. But when I think about it, as a Cuban American that I am, and my father came during those times, and I was born in Miami, you said it so perfectly. Miami is an example of how you can do it right.
Right.
It's a thriving international, great place and thriving business. And it all started because you're right. You actually gave immigrants opportunities to do that. And so, Ira, thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for spending some time with us today. We're going to do this more often, and I know you got some initiatives that you're going to need some help on, and we're going to help you with that, Ira. So thank you for being here today, Ira.
Thank you, Peter. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with everyone, and be happy to be back whenever you want.
We'll do it again.
Ladies
and gentlemen, thank you for being here on Influencers today, where we bring you people that influence so many great subjects. And today was immigration. And I just thank you for being here today with us.